All right, here we go again, ladies and gentlemen. It's a Wednesday afternoon, sunny afternoon here in sunny Southern California, mid-70s. Not a cloud in the sky, not a chemtrail in the sky. I guess there's no moisture moving in here, so there's nothing to block. I guess they've got the weather modification systems in full swing over the southeastern United States right now. But I wanted to talk about the weaponization of US infrastructure. That's right. The weaponization of the United States infrastructure. Did it ever occur to you that things are planned decades in advance, and most, if not all, social engineering projects are nefarious in nature? I mean, just look at them. Look at what they do. Look what they've done. I wanted to talk to you about the electromagnetic weaponry that is already here and is continuing to evolve and emerge. And one of the pretexts being used for fast-tracking its installation is the weaponization of weather, ladies and gentlemen. Did you know, folks, that one of the best ways to get Cuba into the dark age was to suppress importation of money and durable goods? And did you want to know one of the best ways to expedite importation of weaponry in Puerto Rico was to wipe it back to the Stone Age with a hurricane? That's right. Before the hurricane in Puerto Rico, people were living hand to mouth to an extent, but they had some accoutrements like medicine and electricity and running water. And although the electrical grid was a haphazard patch quilt of very volatile and weak and lousy connections, it still worked for the most part. And so did their communications infrastructure. However patched together and tied together it was above ground and in some cases underground. But the majority of the communications in Puerto Rico were wired, traditional copper, analog telephones and communication systems. And we know that overnight they were rendered useless and destroyed, and all of the trees and the poles and the towers and the wires and the buildings and the tin roofs just flew all over the place and wrapped it all up into a bunch of twisted spaghetti that no one will ever be able to figure out ever again. And so now what has happened in Puerto Rico is the fast tracking of, you guessed it, ladies and gentlemen, 5G and millimeter wave 60 gigahertz backhaul. They have begun to put in the millimeter wave systems all over the metropolitan areas of Puerto Rico. And the best way to have accomplished that is not to wait for the city planners to approve renting the poles out. They just directed a storm over the place, parked it there for a week, wiped the place out, broke out the bulldozers, and had the guys bring all the 5G in from Israel, folks. It's an Israeli company that's putting all the 5G in Puerto Rico right now. And it's not just 5G, folks. It's also WiGig and 60 gigahertz backhaul. That's right. They've got the best of both worlds going now. You see, Puerto Rican people are American citizens. But there's one small problem with the Puerto Rican people. They're out of sight and out of mind, ladies and gentlemen. And although they may geographically be just a 1-hour plane flight away from one of our southern states, they might as well be on the dark side of the moon as far as the media is concerned, because you're not hearing about this. And I will tell you that what you are going to see in the media is a lot of weather warfare being broadcast 24/7 to get you good and ready to accept the climate change hoax. Now, you know, folks, they can superheat these systems, they can direct these systems, they can enhance these systems. You know, it's not hard to modify climatic conditions in a closed system. You know, my wife has a nice car. It's a little newer than mine, and her car has what's called dual climate control zones. Like when I'm sitting in the passenger seat and she's driving, I can actually have my side of the car have a different temperature than hers. And that is amazing, folks, because it's accomplished by technology, and it's accomplished by simple heating and cooling by the air conditioner or the heater in the car. But here's the deal. The same thing is accomplished in this closed system that we live on. Because if you want to superheat an air mass, you have two ways to do it. You can aim your directed energy weaponry at it, or you can aim your directed energy weapon at the dome and bounce it back down at it from a remote location. And no, folks, they're not going to run the weather modification from satellites. There's not nearly enough energy that anything floating around up there in one of those Google Loon balloons can reflect back to Earth off those solar panels. So, you know, everything they tell you in the movies is a real lie, a total lie, folks. They're not going to be able to control the weather from satellites, but it's all being controlled from the ground. All these radar installations and these Tesla antenna farms and all of these Doppler installations and all of these electromagnetic warfare installations that they call cell towers and communications towers and all these other things, the GWIN towers, all these things, folks, they have ways of controlling things with all of the technology that's here. We've had climate control for years, folks. They've got it down to an exact science. And to be honest with you, the National Weather Service is acting like a set of dice on a craps table, pretending like anything could come up 7 on the roll. And, you know, it's like, hey, you're going to have great weather today, or we're going to tell you you're going to crap out when it's going to be pouring rain. They never get it right. And it's by design, folks. The weather is not an inexact science. They've turned it into witchcraft, folks. And they don't want you to know what's inside the crystal ball. The people that know what's inside the crystal ball are the ones making the plans when they decide to run a hurricane through, or move the jet stream to dump a bunch of water and crest a bunch of rivers. But here's the deal. What happens is, in the wake of these weather events, and I'll give you this, some of them are natural. Some of them are natural, some of them are enhanced, some of them are left alone. Very few of them are left alone. But I'll tell you this much. There's an agenda behind everything they do. And one of the biggest agendas going right now is weaponizing our infrastructure. Now, weaponizing our infrastructure is a rather complicated process because, you know, we are a constitutional republic. We are a nation of laws. And although I know the United States is a corporation and DC is the corporate office, and we're all fictitious business entities that were killed at birth and assigned a fictitious business name with our birth certificates and our names in all caps for a reason. We're all registered with the Department of Commerce as chattel property. I understand all that. I understand we're under admiralty law, guilty until proven innocent. I know the gold tassel around the flag. I understand all this stuff. I can only fight one battle at a time right now. As a matter of fact, you know, I got to try to fight to get home before it gets dark so I can make sure my tomatoes have water in the pots, so they don't shrivel up and die, so I can have my nice salad with my olive oil and my balsamic vinegar and my onions and my grains and all of the nutrients that go into my wonderful dinner. I digress. But these guys, they got to find a way to get all these antennas all over the place right away before everybody figures out that it's a cookbook, folks. Do any of you remember that Twilight Zone episode? I love the Twilight Zone. I loved Rod Serling. He was a brilliant guy. Although everything he did was kind of a spin and a take on the false reality that they're trying to present us with, the globe Earth and aliens. And, you know, he always did throw a little bit of he always threw a little bit of credibility to God and creation and decency in there. But there was an episode where these aliens came to Earth, and they were these like 10-foot tall guys with these big gigantic heads, and they solved all our problems. They gave us these force fields and taught us how to grow things so we wouldn't have any more hunger, we wouldn't have any more weapons for war. They disarmed everybody, and this world was just a wonderful place. And turned out they wanted to, you know, take us on their spaceship to go visit their home planet, which I don't believe in any of that nonsense. Turned out they were bringing these people to their home planet so they could eat them. And they were fattening us up so they could eat us. You see, one of the ladies figured out this book they had written that they handed over to the UN. It was called To Serve Man, and they could only decipher the cover. Well, she finally figured out the encryption code and figured out that it was a cookbook. Well, folks, the 5G system's a cook. It's a kill grid, folks. It's an electromagnetic warfare, surveillance matrix, psychotronic, voodoo doll system that does about 100 different things. And they got to get it in before we wake up to the fact that it's a cookbook, folks. And they're running out of time. They're running out of time because, you know, they want the internet, because they want the Internet of Things to surveil and harm us and cook us and track us and trace us and sterilize us and damage us and give us atrial fibrillation and all kinds of cancer and infertility and insomnia and depression and mental illness, you know, so they can make us hear voices and our skin starts to burn if they want to crank. They could do a lot of things with these frequencies, folks. Induce paralytic disease and tell us polio's back and that we need a new vaccine. Are you hearing about these illnesses that are a mystery, that are paralyzing children? Have you heard about those? And I think Ohio and Minnesota. I think there was another couple of cases today in another state. Well, flaccid acute myelitis, you know, the doctors admit they don't know what is causing it. There's no cure, there's no vaccine. And so they think it's a virus. And I have my suspicions on whether viruses are actually something that cause disease or not. And I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry and biology, and I question what I've been taught, because a lot of things I was taught in college don't add up. But my point is they can induce illness with these systems. Electromagnetic warfare systems can induce the electromagnetic systems of your body. Take, for example, this disease. What they're referring to is a syndrome of symptoms. They haven't identified a specific pathogen as being solely responsible. They call it acute flaccid myelitis. Myelin refers to the sheathing around the nerves. The nerves are basically electrical conducting wires in your body that run the transmission signals that give instructions to the connective tissue and the muscles and the organs and the cells. Everything is conducted through electromagnetism in your body. So it only makes sense that a very simple way to induce symptoms that appear to be related to central nervous system collapse can be induced with electromagnetic exposure. It's real simple, folks. Now, why is it so important that we get the word out on this racket, folks? Because if they know that we know that they're running the hurricanes and even earthquakes to wreck everything so they can scam, folks. And the quicker we get out in front and start screaming like hell about their putting weaponry everywhere, the less likely they are to step on the gas. Because one of the things they're afraid of is that their system, the internet, that they want for the Internet of Things, is actually waking everybody up to their dastardly plans for us. And that's the issue at hand, folks. We have an opportunity to stop this. We have an opportunity to take matters into our own hands And we have an opportunity to get the word out that people need to protect their families and fight the deployment of these kill grid electromagnetic psychotronic warfare voodoo doll systems. And the poor people in Puerto Rico, they're just looking for a bucket of water. We still have options, folks. We still have plenty of things we can do to protect ourselves. And in the meantime, we all need to investigate how to counteract the weaponry that they're aiming at us. You people all need to do your homework and study and learn how to protect your own fortress against the onslaught that is being aimed at all of us. The United States infrastructure is currently undergoing a weaponization by the nationalization of the communication system by the Trump administration. The United States infrastructure weaponization began many years ago, but was really ramped up by Obama with his Connect Ed and E-rate program, when Obama weaponized all the school classrooms in the United States and put Wi-Fi systems in every school, high school, preschool, elementary school, secondary school, college, junior college, university, you name it. The FCC created a shopping spree for public entities to go buy a bunch of weaponry and hang it on the roofs and have the kids stick it in their frickin' laps. And you know what happened? They got all the kids addicted to the weapons, folks. And as I speak to you right now, there are tens, if not hundreds of millions of people worldwide that are burning up their ovaries with an iPad right now in their laps. That's right. That's right, folks. That's what's going on. I've spoken at length about this, and that component of the United States infrastructure has already been weaponized, and I don't see any choice. You can't get the weaponry out of the classrooms, so the only choice is to get your kids out of the classrooms. Now, the 5G is a very serious problem because it's coming fast. It's coming so fast. They don't even have the devices yet, but yet they want to put in the antennas. Now, all I know is it's a little fishy if they're running to the finish line telling cities they can't charge market rates for the poles, and they're not able to question. They've created a shortened timeline, a shot clock, if you will, for cities to approve the siting of these things. And you know, the crime family, the Clintons, well, you know, Slick Willie, he's the guy that signed the Telecom Act and got the ball rolling on putting the weaponry everywhere in the first place. So the weaponization of the United States infrastructure has been going for decades, folks. It's been going for a long time. And we know they've weaponized the street lights with these LED fixtures that destroy your circadian rhythm and suppress your melatonin. They've weaponized the water delivery systems by allowing the disinfectants to be added under the guise of water disinfecting. They add all these halide compounds, these radical halide compounds that are highly toxic, such as bromine and chloramine, and of course that wicked fluoride. But the weaponization of the United States infrastructure is missing a vital final link, and that is the deployment of millimeter wave systems all over the continental United States. And they're not finished, folks, and they can't get these things in fast enough. And you mark my words, all these places that have been wiped out by these hurricanes and all this flooding that has destroyed all of the backbone infrastructure, copper landlines, these underground switching facilities for all the telephones and the cable, it's all going to be replaced with millimeter wave systems and WiGig 60 gigahertz backhaul systems, folks. And that is what the true intent is of wreaking all this havoc, folks. Weather's always been an issue. We've had hurricanes since the dawn of time. The Earth is a closed system, and you have to understand something. We're living in a closed system, and as such, they figured out how to bounce things off the roof so nobody could see what angle it's coming from. They could move that wand from across the ocean, ladies and gentlemen. If you really believe that some jalopy floating around on some Google Loon balloon at 15 or 20,000 feet has enough power off a car battery and a solar panel to superheat a hurricane, then I've got some swampland on the backside of the moon that I'll sell you for $50 if you're interested. It defies logic that, number one, anything could float around up there, because everything that goes up comes down, ladies and gentlemen. Density requires that if something is heavier than the air, it falls. So as you can see, if you throw something up in the sky, it's going to come down. And the only way to keep something up there is to float it around on a balloon. And how long do you think a balloon's going to be able to hold up a massive car battery and a big old solar panel? It's not going to happen, folks. No way you can generate enough electricity from a solar panel a mile or two or 3 or 4 or 5 miles up. That's enough to cook anything, much less communicate, for crying out loud. So, folks, there's a lot of lies, there's a lot of disinformation, and we've got to cut through it. And I want you all to realize that while they are in the process of making hell on earth in some of our communities in the United States, they're not going to stop there. It's going to keep going. The problem is, they're going to win if we don't wake enough people up, because they mean business. But you know what, ladies and gentlemen? So do we. We mean business too. And it's incumbent upon all of us to warn others of what lies ahead. And that is the weaponization of United States infrastructure. It's coming. It's coming quickly. It's coming fast, folks. And these people will stop at nothing as long as they realize there's nothing stopping them. I'm here to stand in the gap, folks. Will you stand with me? This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer. And it is vitally important that you join me in this war being waged on the United States by the Trojan horse that comes in the name of Donald Trump. God bless all of you folks, and thank you for tuning in. And I hope that when you hear this information, you'll rescue your children. I'm about to walk into a school board meeting where they're having a candidate forum on this issue that I plan to raise, folks. God bless all of you.